us tonight for what has become a new tradition here in Missoula County, and that is having a once a month all community council meeting. You will see that only Commissioners Vero and myself are present. Very wisely, Commissioner Slotnick realized today that it was his wife's birthday, and he probably ought not to be attending this. Although I did assure him that we would be having way more fun tonight than he would at his birthday party, so his loss. But with that, let's just dive right into our agenda for tonight. We've got a number of items that hopefully will be interesting, and as has also become our tradition, we are going to have an update from the Missoula City County Health Department on COVID-19. So tonight we have with us Incident Commander for our COVID-19 effort, Cindy Farr. Cindy, would you like to jump right in and share with us?
Yeah, hi everybody. So as you all know, and I'm sure that you've been watching over the last couple of months, our cases have continued to drop of COVID-19. We are still keeping an eye on some various things that are happening throughout the country. There are 3 variant strains of COVID now that have circulated, and there's been at least 1 case of a variant COVID-19 identified in 47 states, and we have not yet seen it here in Montana, but they are doing some surveillance to watch for that. They do believe that the variant strains are covered by the vaccine, but it is still being studied, but they think that it spreads faster and it can make you sicker than the original COVID-19 strain. So definitely keeping an eye on the science and the research that they're using for that. Right now, we're holding at about 10 to 15 cases a day that are still coming in. We've still got our testing site operating over at the Flynn Lane facility. We've definitely seen a drop in the number of people getting tested, but it's kind of occurring nationwide that everybody is seeing a decline in cases right now. Right now, our average 7-day average incidence rate is 14 per 100,000 people. And we really like that because we know that if it gets over 25, then it's a lot harder to manage than if we can keep that number under 25. So that's really good. We hope that continues. I'm sure everybody probably has a lot of questions about vaccines, so I'll jump in on that. Currently, we're getting approximately 1,500 doses of vaccine per week into the county. Some weeks we get a little bit more than that. Others we get a little bit less, but that's kind of the average right now. At our Lucky's clinic, the Lucky's Market in Southgate Mall is where we've set up our mass vaccination clinic. We are currently doing pushing out vaccine within 24 hours of actually receiving it. So we are able to get that vaccine out into people. We are averaging about 1,200 doses per week, and that does include first dose, the prime dose or the first dose and the second dose. And we're pretty much capable of doing about 1,000 doses a day, although we have not yet had an opportunity to test that. I think the most we've been able to do in a day at this point is around 500. So, but we believe that we've got the capacity to bump that up to 1,000 a day if the vaccine supply starts coming in a little bit faster. I know that there's been a lot of confusion between what's happening with the MCCHD and the vaccine coordination team, and so I'm really glad that Nick is here, that he can talk in a little bit more detail about that. So that's pretty much the update that I have for you, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Cindy. And before we open it up for questions, is Nick here? I'm not seeing his name on the list.
I don't see Nick either. I might check in with him really fast and just see if he's able to hop.
If you could do that, Violet, that'd be great. Otherwise, it looks like you may be the person for all things COVID tonight, Cindy. And it looks like we have a question from Bert Caldwell.
Well, I keep hitting the button and the microphone goes on and off, on and off, on and off. So, Cindy, I just had a question as to what the county health department, what your piece of the action is with the Adams Center Sunday. injections?
So that is actually a clinic that's being run with the vaccine coordination team and the University School of Pharmacy. And so at the health department, we're not actually involved at all in those Sunday clinics. Our clinics are only the ones that are happening over at Lucky's Market.
Okay, good. I understand that there are an awful lot of medical students getting practice sticking people now.
Yep, I believe that is the case.
Cindy, could you, for folks who might have forgotten or who may not have joined us at previous meetings, could you explain the different roles between your incident command structure and the vaccine coordination team?
Yeah, so I was actually going to leave that for Nick, but since Nick isn't here, I can give a basic overview, and then if he jumps on, then we can have him give a little bit more detail. So basically, our role at the health department is to continue doing case investigation and contact tracing, as well as testing, and then pushing out vaccine as just one of many providers in Missoula County that are able to administer vaccine. And the vaccine coordination team is actually the incident management team. It's our type 3 incident management team that normally gets deployed for things like forest fires and other types of emergencies like flooding, but they have been put into place in order to coordinate the vaccine that's coming into the county amongst all of the providers to make sure that the vaccine is going to appropriate providers and that, you know, it's being equitably distributed and used as, you know, as well and as quickly as we possibly can. And so they're the ones that have been helping out the School of Pharmacy by staffing a lot of the positions for the Sunday clinics at the university. And they also are holding pretty regular meetings with all of the providers in town that are administering vaccine and really helping to just facilitate that coordination between all of the providers.
Thanks, Cindy. Tom, you have a question?
Indeed, I do. So up here in Seeley Lake, we've had one vaccination clinic by partnership, the healthcare center, but it was restricted to people who had been there for whose records they had. And there are a number of folks up here, my wife included, that were not in that group. So she actually went to the Adams Center for shot number 1. We'll go back in a couple of weeks. To get that, of course, you had to hover on the, waiting for the link to pop up and bang it really fast to try and get an appointment. So I think it would, if there were kind of a holistic, and I know the page that has all the vaccine things, it'll say community has this, Providence has this, but I still get the sense there's a little bit of uncertainty, even for people in 1B, those of us 70 and older, about what to do or the priority, because there are a lot of folks up here that when the word got around, we have a good sort of gossip network up here in the woods, but when the word got around that partnership had some, people called, but then were turned away because they didn't have records there. Whereas both the Lucky Market and the Adams Center seem to be open to everyone in the county. And I just sense there's a little confusion among some people. And maybe if there's a way we could make that clearer. I mean, I've had both my shots, so like, yay, I'm home free. But any thoughts on that? I mean, if someone, you know, if I see someone up here that is in 1B and should be vaccinated, like, what do you tell them? Do they, especially if they're, you know, if they don't have broadband or if they're kind of technologically challenged? I think that's where we have a little bit of a problem, maybe.
Yeah, so I can address that. I do know that we've got plans with the health department, with our mobile van, our mobile clinic, to try and make some trips up to Seeley Lake as soon as we have enough vaccine to be able to do that. Right now, we just are not getting enough vaccine in. But we do plan on doing some mobile outreach to the Seeley Lake community as well as some of our other outlying areas. And right now, I believe that the website that that you're referring to does announce when vaccine appointments are available, and they also send it out to the media. And so if you keep an eye on the newspaper or on the media and you find out when a vaccine clinic is going to be available, then you can also call 258-INFO and select option number 3, and they can help people actually get scheduled for an appointment if they're not able to do it on their own online. So that's how it is right now, and I'm certainly happy to take any feedback that you guys give me back to that vaccine coordination team so that they can try and get some more information out to the public.
Cindy, and maybe Tom, if you want to speak to this just a little bit more, what is the coverage like in the Sealy Lake Pathfinder? And I wonder, Cindy, if this is an opportunity for our Joint Information Center to do a little more targeted outreach to the newspaper, because that is probably, I'm suspecting, one of the primary news outlets for many folks in your neck of the woods. Tom, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's a great idea. And of course, the Pathfinders Weekly, their deadline is end of day Monday, which doesn't always match a variety of organizations, you know, when they put out information. But yeah, I'll pass that along to the editors and say, you know, we'll watch for it. And we've got a couple of Facebook sites. There's a City Lake site, a Double Arrow Ranch site, you know, a Swan Valley site. So yeah, I think we can definitely help with that. And of course, having a mobile van up here would be awesome, because some of the people who might be able to schedule a time at Lucky's or Adams Center, then you got the transportation thing. And if they rely on iRide, then you got to schedule the iRide with that. But I mean, so far, I think the website's really great. I think the information has been well presented. It's mostly just like vaccine availability, and when there's enough to send a van up this way, I think it'd be great. But we'll definitely work the publicity, the communication angle as much as we can.
Yeah, the other thing that if there's a specific bulletin board that everybody looks at, that, you know, or something like that, if you could let us know about that too, because we could certainly send some people up with flyers that they could stick on, you know, on bulletin boards if that's easier. I know one of the complicating factors is that sometimes we don't know that we're going to have vaccine until the day that we have it, and then we are trying to schedule for the next day. And so we have really limited notice for people that we're opening up a clinic. So there may not always be enough time to run somebody up to Sealy Lake and pass out flyers, but when we're able to do that, we are also happy to do that as well.
Great. No, you know, we're making progress. It's just that everybody wants it now, right? And we have no patience. But thanks a lot. We appreciate the help.
Thanks, Tom. Bert?
Yeah, just real quick, 2 things. One, Cindy, how do you feel about the law that's going to change and your decisions for restricting mass movement and everything's going to go over to Mr. Strohmeyer as an elected official?
So I actually feel like here in Missoula County, we are in a good position because we work really closely with our elected officials. And so while a lot of the bills that are going through the legislature are making me a little bit nervous right now, just because it is, they are trying to take away any kind of authority of public health to make health related decisions. I do feel like at least we do have a really good working relationship with our elected officials. And so Dave, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would like to think that we would just continue to work together and we would be making recommendations. I mean, if it goes that way, we'd be making recommendations to our elected officials.
Before you do that, Dave, the other thing I wanted to say was, when you do get a mobile van moving around, if you need a support pair of hands, call me.
Oh, definitely will. We will reach out.
Okay.
Thanks, Bert. Yes, there are a lot of moving pieces in Helena as we speak. Some maybe moving in the wrong direction by some of our estimation, but we'll roll with it. Lee Bridges.
Hi, and my phone is ringing now, damn it. I need to catch it. Hey, my question is, I'm gonna ignore it. If the first of all, what is the time period for getting your shot? If you've got the 2-shot vaccination, what's the timeline for getting the second shot? 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
So
Cindy?
for the Moderna vaccine, it's actually 4 weeks. It's 28 days, and for the Pfizer vaccine, it's 21 days. And most of the clinics are actually scheduling your second dose appointment when you get your first dose of vaccine.
Okay, that was my second question, is how reliable is getting your second dose after you've gotten your first? I wouldn't want that to just be hanging in the air.
Yeah, we've been trying to actually get more public information out about this because we've had people sign up for a second dose appointment, and if you have that appointment, you're guaranteed that second dose because we're getting those second doses in automatic shipments, and so you're guaranteed to have a second dose if you sign up for that second dose appointment. The problem that we're actually having is people not showing up for that second dose appointment, and so we've really been trying to get more information out to everyone to just remind you that if you know, when you commit to that first dose, you really need to be committed to getting that second dose as well, because you're not fully covered until you've gotten both doses.
Well, just to let you know, my wife and I will both be there tomorrow
Oh, good.
for the second dose.
Does that answer your question, Lee?
It does. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're welcome.
Well, thanks so much, Cindy. We've got a few other agenda items. We can probably take one more question for Cindy, if anyone has one. Okay. Well, thanks again, Cindy. We'll probably have you or one of your colleagues back next month.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
You bet.
Thanks so much,
a lot.
Cindy.
Okay, our next item is an update on affordable housing work that's going on in our community. And we have Melissa Gordon and Jordan Lyons with us, and I will turn it over to you two to introduce yourselves and tag team this however you would like.
Hi, I'm Melissa Gordon, and I work in the Community and Planning Services Department for the county, and I'm here to talk with you about 2 exciting developments in the housing arena for the county. The first is that we've hired a housing specialist, and as Dave said, that person is Jordan Lyons, and today is his second day on the job. So I'll let Jordan introduce himself in a minute, but just a little background and information on the position itself. We created the housing position to define, develop, and then implement an affordable housing plan for Missoula County with the end goal of creating more affordable housing options for all Missoula County residents. And Jordan, I will let you take it away. He has some really interesting and varied experience that I think will make him really great in this position, and you'll definitely be hearing more from him. But for now, Jordan, if you can just provide a quick intro, and if everyone can hold their hard-hitting questions, because poor Jordan is very new to his position, with this being day 2.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm just so glad to be here. Yeah, I'm Jordan Lyons, and I have lived in Missoula since 2007, and I've worked for several different housing-related organizations. I coordinated the housing program at Missoula AIDS Council. I've been a property manager for affordable housing at Missoula Housing Authority. I work at Missoula Aging Services, and for the last few years, I have worked as the director of the ASUM Renter Center at the university, helping student renters. And I have my master's in public administration from UM, and I live in Missoula with my wife, Christine DeCenzo, who worked for Missoula County for many years, and some of you have probably met also. But yeah, so thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. I'm really passionate about affordable housing, and really excited to help us make some inroads on that here in Missoula County.
Thank you, Jordan. And the second thing I'd like to talk with you about is that we are going to begin work with a consulting firm on the development of an affordable housing strategy for the county. We will be working with Eco Northwest. They're a firm that's based out of Portland. They've been around since 1974, and they have done similar work in 30 urban and rural communities across the Pacific Northwest. So we're super excited to work with them. And I'm going to attempt to show you the timeline for that project, because we certainly will be reaching out to you all for input. So we will have our project kickoff meeting with Eco Northwest and the Board of County Commissioners here in early March. That's scheduled for March 8th. And then Eco Northwest is going to do a survey of existing conditions. They're going to review all of the existing housing plans and policies in the county. And at the same time that they're doing that, they're going to begin a stakeholder outreach effort. And you can see that that will begin in the middle of March, and that will go all the way through the end of July. And that's really where you're going to come in. They're going to be reaching out to all the community councils and probably to this group as a whole to get input from you as they move forward with the development of that plan. There will be a small 5 to 7 member project steering committee that will be formed and will help to guide the work of the project. And they're going to meet once a month in April, May, June, and July. And then in the middle of August, Eco Northwest will present a draft report, and that's going to be a 20 to 30 page report that details a comprehensive strategic approach for the county to take to develop, to address affordable housing issues. And then that final presentation will take place at the end of August. So you will have a chance to listen in on those meetings and then to provide your input along the way. So we're just really excited about both of these things. And as I said, today is Jordan's second day, but I will put his email and my email in the chat. And if you have any questions about his position or the study, I would be happy to field those.
Thanks, Melissa, and welcome, Jordan, virtually. Any questions out there for either Melissa or Jordan, or comments? It almost looked like someone at 4410 was wanting to say something, but we do have a hand up. Emily.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious on why just as a background information is why switching, what's the goal for Jordan? What's the goal for bringing on Echo? What made those decisions happen? Obviously, affordable housing is huge and something we are, I mean, in the current situation of rising housing cost, but why the shift, why the decisions were made to do this and looking at.
Thanks, Emily. Well, I'll take a first stab at I guess the overarching picture is that we in Missoula County government, and certainly in the Board of County Commission, with the Board of County Commissioners, as with all of you on the line here, have recognized housing is a big piece of a big challenge that we face in Missoula County, and housing prices, housing availability, housing equity, and we really have had no one who could really focus their efforts on this in Missoula County government. The task of looking at housing and how do we address those challenges was really kind of decentralized and dispersed among many departments and individuals, all of whom have other responsibilities. So it seemed like the time has come, and the city already has invested in having someone dedicated for this task. And it occurred to us that the time has come that we need to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. And if we're talking about wanting to address our housing challenges, we need to bring some concentrated, devoted resources to that. And along with that, looking at what are best practices, what are some creative ways to help guide us along this path, and not having any sort of a plan. That's where bringing in the consultant help is so critical, I think, here, is bringing that expertise to the table in conjunction with having a staff person devoted to this who can really chart a course for us. Melissa, do you want to add anything there?
I don't. That was really well said.
Dave, if I can just really quickly, I might add to that just a bit. And I agree with everything that you've said. I think one of the sorry, I've got a barking dog there. One of the things I guess I would add is that we really have seen an increase of really the issues that surround the whole affordable housing question as a result of COVID-19. And so it did prompt some additional conversations, even in the tight budget times that we've been facing here with COVID-19. And this was a topic we've held in the CAPS budget as a priority for quite a while. And it was a conversation that really, again, the COVID-19 situation sort of brought to the surface and said, you know, this issue has always been here, but it's even more so prevalent now as it's ever been. And so that's what has prompted this thought. The additional piece is that the county has a lot of additional community needs outside of the heart of Missoula. And so we really want to make sure that the study takes a look at those needs, that we have a program that's set up to function alongside the city of Missoula, but also recognize those other communities that are outside of the city and even the surrounding area of the city. So just a couple of additional points that I think we've talked about.
Thanks, Chet. Juanita, anything you want to add to that?
No, but I see Emily and Tom. You guys said it perfectly, and excited that Jordan is here at this time, and that we are doing this still so soon after the city has started it. So it makes sense that, that we could get started on this now, so we're not duplicating.
Yep.
Emily.
Thanks, Juanita. Emily, did you have any? Oh, we got the thumbs up from Emily. Thank you. Tom, do you have a question or comment?
My question is, and you may know this, we had a call, there's some folks up here in Sealy Lake that in our area that are really interested in affordable housing and chat. And I think, Melissa, you were on the call 10 days or so ago, I had a good call. After that, as we've had some follow-on conversations, it became pretty clear it's a complicated problem. In fact, I got an email from Montana Housing something with continuing ed just for the tax implications, like Section 8 housing and all this. So my question is, and Jordan, I know it's your second day, but I mean, come on, tomorrow you'll be like a vet. Would it be possible to do kind of a primer for those of us up here that, you know, we want to do it, we know there's, you know, there's money and funding and land and this and that, but it's a big area, and I think we would benefit from, it could certainly be done virtually, just, you know, taking us through the types of affordable housing. I know there's some state grants, county grants, probably federal grants, foundation grants. And is that something, Jordan, you can do for us?
And Jordan, consider the freedom of saying anything you want, because you can always chalk it up to a youthful indiscretion if it's inaccurate. So any initial thoughts, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely be open to something like that. And yeah, I think I could do something like that. And and I've worked in a lot of different types of housing programs, and you know, already a couple days in, I'm learning about yet more that I have not been involved with. You know, I don't know if I'm ready to schedule it right now, but I would love to circle back with you about that and maybe set up something like that.
I think that's a yes, Tom.
That'd be good. I'll shoot you an email, and yeah, we'll do a dialogue on this. Great.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Tom. Other questions or comments out there?
I see in the chat that Nick has arrived.
All right. Well, thanks so much, both Melissa and Jordan. We appreciate you joining the Missoula County team, Jordan, and thanks, Melissa, for your ongoing work related to housing grants and many other things that are on your plate. So since we do have Nick Holloway who's joined us, why don't we just pivot just a little bit and loop back to Nick. Nick, is there anything that you'd like to say by way of an update as far as work on the vaccination front, and then we could take another question or two if they're out there.
Sure, Commissioner Stormare. Thanks for having me here, and sorry for my lateness. We have been holding clinics, and they have been getting a little more well done every time. People are flowing through a little better all the time. We're doing mass public vaccination clinics at the Adams Center. This weekend, we're doing a second dose clinic. So that's 804 people that received their first dose 3 weeks ago, and now they'll receive their second. And the health department, as Cindy probably said, is doing their clinics at Lucky's. And we've been supporting both of those clinics logistically and also with sign-up process, which is what I'd like to talk a little bit about. So we do have online portals at covid19.missoula.co where people can sign up when there are clinics open for sign up, which is not all the time, as we know right now, because vaccine is not in regular or plentiful supply. But we also reserve about 20% of the size of the clinic that is planned for people that have limited or no internet access or abilities. So we set that aside and we let people know through messaging that we're really hoping this is just for folks that do not have that limited internet capability. And so far it's gone pretty well. We've the online portal usually fills up within just minutes of being put out there, and we do usually do some messaging around it, putting it out there so that we give people notice that come 1 o'clock on Thursday, say it'll go open, and it gives sort of an equitable way for people to sign up and know about the clinic. But then we also do the same for the call-in center, and we have our call takers sign people up. And what happens is, so far, because vaccine is in such low supply, we essentially, unfortunately, create a rush for people to get signed up. It's not unlike buying concert tickets for a high demand group like the Rolling Stones or something. So that's the unfortunate truth of when you have much more demand than when you have supply for just about anything. And I think all of us can sort of understand that. But we are making the process more equitable and easier for people to get through, even though most still will not get through it. We do look forward to the day when supply is pretty much equal to demand, so there isn't this mad rush to get a vaccination, but that's where we are now. At any time, people can call 258-INFO during regular business hours, which is 8 to 5. Anytime during those hours, people can call and get the latest vaccine options, and if there are upcoming clinics, we will inform folks when that might occur. And at any time, people can go to covid19.missoula.co and find out who all of the registered vaccine providers are in Missoula County. There's about 27 of them right now. Most of them don't have vaccine or will have vaccine only on an intermittent basis when it comes in. We get a weekly allocation of vaccine. And but you can see how to sign up, and you can sort of go through the website and get to know what's there before the sign up process occurs. So I think that's a good thing to do, so you know what your options will be when the time comes. Let's see. I wanted to tell people a little bit about the vaccine supply as well. We have basically 3 pipelines of vaccine coming into Missoula. One is through the state DPHHS, and we, the vaccine coordination team, are the single point of contact in Missoula County for that. So all of those 27 providers make an order through us, and we process that and make an order through the state. And then a few days after the order is made, we find out how much vaccine is allocated to us, and then we distribute the vaccine out to various providers. And we're trying to make sure that we can do this in a good, even-handed process. We want to make sure also that if we start providing one of the providers with vaccine, we're able to continue to provide that provider with vaccine without interruptions, so we can create sort of a regular schedule for people to understand. And we've built that infrastructure out pretty well. Now we're just waiting for regular higher allocations of vaccine. The other pipelines are through the federal government, and most of the pharmacies in Missoula County will be getting vaccine through the federal government. That hasn't started yet, but that should be coming. And then there's the one that came up recently, the federally qualifying health center, of which Partnership Health is the only vaccine provider in Missoula County, is the other federal pipeline where they will get vaccines. So with the state allocation, we can move around vaccine and sort of put it in the places where it'll get the most use, or where the need is the greatest, and that kind of thing. But the federally allocated vaccine, we have less control over who gets it, and there's less trading around. But that's what we're working with now. With that, let's see, I've talked about the website and the call center. We've also done some outreach through our community connections, through faith-based organizations, and through utility bills and radio ads. So we just want to make sure everybody has the information they need and they can get. And so we're doing our level best to make sure everybody does know what they need to know about vaccine and scheduling of vaccination.
Nick, one question that came up earlier, or comment, was up in the Sealy area, especially for folks who may not have great internet connectivity, and who might get their information and news from other sources. One point would be maybe the Joint Information Center could tie in with the Sealy Lake Pathfinder, and I'm sure that we already provide announcements to them, but see if there's any way that it's one thing to provide the information to a news outlet, it's another that it actually get printed in a fashion that folks can find and understand the information. So just making sure that any announcements that are timely are getting into that publication, but just given how quickly and rapidly things can change at times, that might not sync up with the news cycle of a weekly publication like that. If there's any opportunity to maybe get announcements at a bulletin board at the post office, for instance, where a lot of people go in Sealy, and might be a point of contact for information, that might be something else to kick around.
Yeah, those are great thoughts, Commissioner Stormeyer. We do feel that our outlying communities are extremely important, and we do not want them to feel neglected. As far as Sealy goes, we are going through the Missoula Aging Services up there and distributing information through them, and the Sealy Lake Community Foundation as well. There are some neighborhoods up there that we're distributing flyers through as well, and we are also doing it through the Missoula Electric Co-op billing system. So we are reaching, but there's the more places to reach out, the better.
Thanks, Nick. Any questions for Nick before we need to move on?
This is Bert. I just want to thank him for showing up. He always brings some information that it's a little different perspective, and we enjoy it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bert.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Nick? Okay. Well, thanks, Nick. Thanks for joining us. You always bring great information for us.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, and pass on our thanks to your team members. We know that folks are working awfully hard, and your good work has not gone unnoticed.
I sure will. Thank you.
You bet. All right. Next, we have Shane Stack, our Director of Public Works with Missoula County. He's going to say a few words about the federal land access program that we are looking at trying to seek funding through.
All right, Dave, I'm going to maybe say more than a few words. I'll try to be brief, but share enough information that it at least is interesting. So
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so the Federal Lands Access Program is managed through a couple different federal lands managers, but Western Federal Lands out of Vancouver, Washington is the kind of the group we'll be working with for our FLAP application or applications for the Montana group. So I'll actually kind of cover a few interesting slides here. So the FLAP program, basically, it's part of it was part of MAP 21, which was the federal highway funding program, which is generally a 5-year program. Then it continued on through the FAST Act, and the FAST Act was extended through September 30th of 2021. So it continues, and one of the interesting things is we're going to apply for funding that's kind of 3 or 4 years down the road, and it's entirely possible that the program won't exist in a future highway funding bill, but we're applying as if it will be, and they get around $270 million annually for the nation in this this program. Here are the folks that actually will determine or score our applications, and there's an individual out of Federal Highway Administration, Western Federal Lands Office in Vancouver, Colleen Fletcher, and then Jim Skinner out of Montana Department of Transportation in Helena, and then Eric Bryson with the Montana Association of Counties. The annual allocation for the FLAP program in Montana is $16 million, and $16 million doesn't go a very long ways, and there's a lot of counties and cities in Montana that will be applying for this funding. So it's fairly competitive. The match for the county is going to be 13.42%. So keep in mind, that 16 million, we'll probably have to keep our projects in this kind of the $1 million to $5 million range. So I'll get into our project list here in a second and kind of give you a little background on how we selected them. But basically eligible projects. So these are examples. So this Road A, it might be a county road that leads directly into federal lands, so that's eligible. Or this road that might be a county road that stays a county road through the federal lands, that's eligible. And this road here that doesn't quite reach the federal land, but a portion of it eventually does, so that's eligible. So those are the kinds of roads, and I think we have roads that meet probably all of these examples that we'll be applying for. And finally, kind of just a rough schedule. So the call for projects is open right now. The Montana program, I mentioned, will have 16 million per year, but they're actually going to do fiscal year 23 through 25. So we'll have $48 million on the table to apply for. And the call for projects ends April 1st, so we've got to get our applications in here pretty quick. That said, I just wanted to kind of share with you the list of projects we considered. And hopefully you can all see this. These numbers might be a little small. Dave, can you see these numbers okay?
Yeah, it depends how close my eyes are to the screen. That's better.
Okay. I just wanted to give you some perspective. We considered around $76 million worth of projects, and went through kind of a prioritization project, and I'll kind of page down here, but out of those $76 million worth of projects, we had to prioritize to try to select them. And some of the criteria we looked at was, the cost of the match. What kind of recreational volumes are we seeing? Is it a small use for recreation, or is it high use? And what's the condition of the county road that we're going to be applying for? Is the condition of that roadway really in really good shape? If so, do we really need to apply? And then we kind of just gave it a general county score, low, medium, high, and then the federal land managers had a couple options or a couple opportunities to score as well. They were looking at it as just a general kind of a land manager perspective. How's that road going to help for fire? How's it going to help for maintenance? And then we had a separate category for them to score, and that was recreational use. So what we had to do is we had to meet with, say, the BLM folks or the Forest Service folks, and that's actually how we ended up creating this large list. Is we met with those different groups and tried to brainstorm like what roadways would be high priority roadways to apply for in Missoula County. And so it was good to get the land managers' feedback and perspective, and we also met with the commissioners and got their perspective as well on some of these roads. So I guess long story short, we narrowed it down to basically these, call it the top three here. They're all highlighted in yellow. Sawmill Gulch, 9 Mile Road, in Cold Creek, up in the Condon area. And I will kind of maybe go into a little bit more detail on some maps here. So if you're not familiar, this is the 9 Mile area. And this is such a big space. I'll zoom in a little bit, but basically this is, you can kind of see I-90 running through here. This is the 9 Mile interchange. And this is, oh gosh, can't remember the name of the road right now.
Remount.
Remount, thank you. Remount and West 9 Mile. So our application, and when I put together the projects to score, I just basically put together around 7.5 miles because I had to put estimates together for every one of these projects, which is quite a bit of work actually. But I kept it kind of simple for 9 Mile and basically said, well, let's look at a project that would start at West 9 Mile intersection and go 7.5 miles out towards the end of maintenance. And that got us around a project around $3 to $3.5 million. And so after we selected this project to be a project that we would potentially deliver, I actually looked at what the cost might be if we did the 12.5 miles from the intersection of Remount all the way to the end of county maintenance. And it's a pretty sizable amount. You're probably in the neighborhood of $5 to $6 million with our match being in that $1 million range. And so it gets to be pretty big, but we're still evaluating like the exact location of this project, but the scope of the project is essentially re-graveling, maybe some grade and alignment work, culvert replacement, new signs, but it's not a paving project. It's just re-graveling. So that's the first project, and I guess I just open it up now if there are any questions on this first project that folks might have, and if not, I can jump to the next project.
Any questions from folks on the 9 Mile project? Okay, why don't you go ahead, Shane?
All right. The next one we talked about was Sawmill, and Sawmill Gulch is just up the Rattlesnake, and it happens to be a segment of road, and maybe I'll zoom out a little bit just to give you guys some perspective. Obviously, here's Van Buren, Greeno Drive takes you up the Rattlesnake, and when you get to, if you've ever been to the trailhead up the Rattlesnake, it's a pretty heavily used parking area, and you can see just in the aerial photo, there's quite a bit of cars already in that spot, and even along the roadway, you can see vehicles parked. So it gets quite a bit of use, and if you look at the way we scored and the criteria that we used, that recreational component obviously scored pretty high. In recent years, this portion of Sawmill, which was essentially just a non-maintained public road, the county actually has agreed to take over ownership and maintenance of that road. And working with the Forest Service on the scope of this project, what we've determined is that, and maybe I can start further down here, we would basically overlay from the intersection of Rattlesnake to the parking area here. And there may be some widening to accommodate parking, but for the most part, this road probably isn't going to change a whole heck of a lot. I think the bigger improvement potentially is, at least getting a new paved surface on this stretch of Sawmill, but even past the fork here where it turns to a dirt road, we'll go in just a little bit. There's a kind of an area that we can create a turnaround and add potentially some parking areas for summer use. So this green segment here will essentially be rehabilitated. I still got to work with Jen Hensick with the Forest Service to see, if we can get it widened out a little bit more than it is today, so that we can get plows up and down there. But that's the second project, and I think what it does is it allows us at Public Works to maintain this road in the winter, but also provides a little bit better access for those that want to recreate, not only in the summer but also winter. So, any questions on that one?
Okay, why don't we head up to the Swan then?
Okay. And I would just say one last thing on this, Dave, is that there's not any work planned for the parking area for the Sawmill Trailhead, but we can certainly improve the roadway. So, and the last one, this is Cold Creek up in the Swan, and I'm kind of just zooming out a little bit to give you some perspective. These gray lines here, they're the county line, and this is Highway 83, this kind of this blue line. And so if you go to the farthest regions in northern Missoula County, you'll come across Cold Creek, and it's a fairly simple project, roadway improvement on Cold Creek itself, but the biggest scope element is the replacement of Cold Creek Bridge, and it's in a condition that certainly needs to be replaced. It's, I guess if you zoom in a little bit, the bridge, as long as it is today, I think a newer bridge would have to be a little bit longer to accommodate kind of this braided stream that happens with the Swan. So pretty simple project there. And I think the nice thing about the projects that we have selected, obviously we've spanned Missoula County. You go from 9 Mile to more of the urban center of Missoula, and then all the way up north and into Camden. And I think that's a good thing. We're spreading the applications out across the county, and that certainly wasn't our intent, but I think it's one of the benefits of our scoring process that it just turned out that way. So, any questions on these projects?
Any questions or comments out there? Well, thanks, Shane. This is super helpful, and for folks who are representatives from the various community councils, if you have any questions after the fact, don't hesitate to reach out to the commissioner's office or to Shane directly. No guarantee that we're going to get any of these projects, even one, funded, but we're going to take our best shot at it. And this is one way in which the gas tax dollars that were approved by voters in Missoula County will be put to use as the match for these federal funds.
So, Dave, if you don't mind, just one more comment. If you know, we'd certainly like comments on the projects, but even more so, any letters of support from any of the community councils would be appreciated. And due to the fact that we've got to get these submitted by April 1st, it would be we'd certainly need those pretty quick. So,
how quick do you need those, Shane?
Yeah, what's your date?
I think late March, probably 24th, 25th of March would be appreciated. That gives us enough time to get those in those applications.
Okay.
Can we send out reminders, Dave?
I don't know. Can we, Juanita? Chris, what do you think? Or Chet? Yeah, let's, we will follow up. We will make that happen.
Yeah, I'm sure we can put something together, Dave.
Okay.
Great.
And I think particularly in the case at hand, West Valley Community Council and the Swan Community Council would be the ones who would probably be most interested in weighing in with letters of support for these particular projects.
We'll see what we can do.
Okay. Who was that who just...
It's Tom Tucker.
Oh, hi, Tom. Thanks. Very good. Okay, well, thanks, Shane. We appreciate that. So next on the agenda, and we had this scheduled for tonight, a little update on the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority. I don't want to keep folks too long here tonight, and I'm tempted to kick this to our next meeting unless there is anyone here who specifically showed up tonight for this agenda item, and I would not want to shortchange you, but I also want to give a chance to folks who are on the line here tonight from the various community councils also to share a few words from their perspective of what's happening in their geographic area. So is there anyone who would be heartbroken if we kicked the rail authority discussion until next month?
Works for me.
Okay, seeing no words of outrage, let's hold that until the month of March and just open it up. If folks from any of the community councils want to raise your hand and maybe just give a little bit of an update of what's going on in your neck of the woods before we adjourn tonight. Bert.
Yeah, two things. One is you probably read in the paper that the Bonner Mill housing is all going from rental to owned. I'm not sure what my feelings are on that. I just got into it a couple of days ago. I think that Steve and Mike have done an excellent job of refurbishing all those houses. For them to go at 250 to 350 might be a hair of a stretch, but I guess if people are willing to pay that, and of course people coming from California might pay $700,000 for one of those little houses, but I just want to make people aware that the Bonner area is actually going to be owned, and hopefully we will have more participation at the Bonner Council. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and this one's been stewing in my head and nobody else's, just my head and you know how weird that can be. About 3 to 4 years ago, I spent 4 months training to be a sheriff's deputy. Some of you already know that. And something bothered me at the time, and it bothers me long enough now. I need to say something about it. And I got 2 commissioners online. To become a sheriff's deputy or law enforcement anywhere in the state of Montana, you have to pass the MPAT, which is the Montana Physical Abilities Test, which is pretty good. Unfortunately, within the sheriff's department, and I'm not sure about anywhere else, you never have to take it again. And considering that on any given day or hour, there are a maximum of 6 sheriffs covering from the northwest end of our county to the south end of our county to Sealy and Swan end of our county. And if one of them gets in any kind of a situation, help can be as much as an hour away. I would like to suggest, and I don't know how much effect you as commissioners have, but I'd like to suggest that we start rolling in with new sheriff's deputies, that it's an annual or maybe a biannual thing that they pass the MPAT. They need to be in good condition when they're out there by themselves, and there are people on the sheriff's department now that have been there for a decade or more that have not considered the MPAT since they actually took the job. So that's my thought.
Thanks, Bert. We'll bring it up with the sheriff. Well, we have zero control over that, but we certainly have the ability to bring it up in discussion with our chief law enforcement officer for Missoula County.
Thanks,
Thank
Bert.
you.
I think that's a good topic to bring up.
Lee?
Yeah. I was just thanking Bert. I thought that was a good topic.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Lee. Appreciate that. Anything else, Lee? Anything else while you're on the line here going on in East Missoula?
Yeah, evidently we have a sale on Summers property there along the river, and Brian Thorkmorton or something of that nature has contacted me and will be present for our next for our March, I think it's March 9th, East Missoula Community Council meeting to explain what they're planning on doing out there. They're looking to expand the roadway over. I'll have to look at his email, but it looks like they're asking East Missoula, not only sharing what their design plan is, but also asking to extend the roadway over to one of the outlets there. I'll know more, of course, at the meeting, but I just thought that was interesting, and we do appreciate developers reaching out to our council to talk to us about what they're designing and what they're planning going forward. I think that's a fresh start for some of these places going up for sale in East Missoula. I know we had a little bit of a run in there in the fall with behind Oli's, and it's better to just come to the council and bring it up and talk about it first. I think it'll be easier for them by doing that. I don't know what they have in mind just yet, but I do want to say I do appreciate them bringing it to the council to talk to us about it before they get started.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll see what they're going to do.
Tom, do you want to give us a little update in Sealy Lake?
Well, yeah, I mean, the great thing up here is we've got tons of snow now because it was pretty thin for a while. So I think our winter sports season, those of us who like cross-country skiing and snowshoeing and the snowmobilers, it's great. And we're glad to see all that. One thing that has come up both in this homeowners association I'm involved with, but other places around here, is how easements work. Because obviously this last year there's been just like Missoula, urban Missoula, all these people buying property, you know, everything gets snapped up. So we're seeing questions about, well, if there's an easement across someone's land, power line easement, recreational easement, what does that mean and who enforces that? So I guess my thing would be, maybe it's a good topic for the next meeting like this. What's the deal with that? Because I've had people tell me, well, gee, Tom, you know, I saw in a county plat that there's a recreational easement from, you know, up in the Swan or down in Sealy. And the person whose land it went across said, I'm trespassing. And like, what do I do? And looking into it, it's kind of complicated. But I think especially in the outlying areas where, you know, we border public lands, or, you know, people want to get across private property to DNRC, Forest Service lands, that would be a big help. And I don't know if that's county attorney. I don't even know who knows that stuff. But it would be good if we could have some clarification on that.
I bet we could find someone. Chet, do you want to give that some thought and or bring in John Hart from the county attorney's office for maybe an upcoming meeting?
Yeah, we could definitely do that. And Tom, it does kind of depend on the circumstance. And, you know, when you talk about snowmobiling, you usually have multiple jurisdictions. That might be different than something that is in your local neighborhood. If you have some examples that you might be willing to share, that might help us hone in a little bit on your question.
Yeah, in fact, I'll take some pictures of some of these old county plat maps from way back, and I'll send them to you. Yeah, be glad to.
That'd be great, and then we can figure out who to get involved to follow up.
Thanks, Tom. And while we're talking about Sealy, I just want to say that someone who you might not see on the line here tonight, who I want to make sure that we give recognition to, is Klaus von Stutterheim, who is retired from the Sealy, serving on the Sealy Lake Community Council, and I just want to give a shout out to him for his many years of service, not only in the Sealy Lake area, but I think providing a great example for public service in general, and how you can, in a real positive way, energize a community council.
Well, we appreciate that, and we certainly loved what you did as commissioners with the proclamation. We put it on our council Facebook site. It's had a lot of views. So, yeah, I mean, he was the inspiration for so many of us to do what we do. So we really liked the recognition he got from the three of you.
Thanks, Tom. Juanita, did you have something you want to jump in with?
No, I'm just glad that we were able to make that proclamation on February 16th as Klaus von Stutterheim Day. So
Yeah.
And like Tom said, he's been such an inspiration for so many of us.
Thanks for that. Anyone from Lolo on the line tonight? How about West Valley?
Just me.
Anything that you want to report from your neck of the woods?
Well, not really too much going on out here. It's been wet and cold.
Okay.
I did notice that you guys had a grader on Hool Creek, but where the gravel meets the asphalt down there on that stuff from Boyer, that turned into a soup hole, and it's nothing but washboard for about, I don't know, 10, 15 feet in a mud hole. I don't know if you can do anything until the water goes away.
Well, yeah, if luck would have it, we've got our public works director on the line tonight, Shane.
And we'll be out in that area on Friday, so I can certainly take a look at it. But I can ask him if that's something they can try to clean up. But I think you're right. Sometimes those locations in spring, winter, where everything's wet, is just they become a little bit more challenging to take care of.
Yeah, and right now it's a mud soup bowl, and I don't know, unless you dump a bunch of gravel in there or something, I don't know. But the buses are the only ones that really have a tough time beating the kids around going across that. We've learned to slow down, and of course, I'm old, so I drive slow anyway. But we got kids that live up there, and they think it's, fast ain't fast enough.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take a peek at it.
Well, yeah, when you get a chance. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be up some of us will be up your neck of the woods up in the 9 Mile area later in the week. How about the Swan? Anyone from the Swan on the line tonight? How about Evero? We don't hear much from Evero these days. Anyone else who has not had a chance to chime in who would like to? About anything, even non-agenda items, this is your chance.
As always, I would like to say thank you for doing this. It's been informative almost every month, and look forward to it. Thank you.
You bet. So for our meeting in March, we will, as usual, try to schedule the health department and our vaccination coordination team. We'll also try to get to the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority presentation, and in addition, by popular demand tonight, we will try to have a little presentation on easements. And if there's any other agenda items you guys think of after this meeting, even get in touch with your regular point of contact for all things community council, or your very own county commissioners, a couple of whom are on the line tonight. Juanita, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, we're going to have Jordan speak as well to give a small presentation in March, or would it be better in April?
Well, I know he was going to give some thought to this folks up in Sealy Lake. Maybe we let him settle into his position, and whenever you're ready, Jordan, you could come back to us with some initial thoughts on housing in Missoula County. What do you say?
Good deal. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. And I'll just should we just schedule a date later? I'll just confer with Melissa and Chet maybe and get back to you.
Yeah, work with Melissa.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. All right. Anything else good of the order tonight?
I want to thank you for the update in March that we'll be having on the passenger rail. I look forward to that. And I also, of course, again, echo Bert Caldwell's comment about how much I enjoy these meetings as well.
Okay, yeah, Lee, we'll be sure to put the rail discussion at the front end of the train rather than at the caboose next time, so we'll be sure to get to it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us tonight as always, and be safe and be well.
See y'all next month.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.